over here we have Google Cloud Console, and I'm already logged in into my console account, and I already created one of the project with name MLOps. And creating project is quite straightforward. You just have to click on new project and give it a name. And that's pretty much it. It will automatically create a new project for you. So in this part, we are going to deploy a Kubernetes cluster onto a Google Cloud platform. So first of all, we have to go to search over here and just search for Kubernetes. And we can see we have a Kubernetes engine right here. So we're just going to click on that. And we're going to select the project. So this is my first time like I'm setting up a cluster over here. So I'm going to click on enable. And this gonna enable the Kubernetes engine API onto our Google account, basically onto our cloud platform account on this particular project, MLOps. So let's wait for a bit. So now the Kubernetes API are enabled on our Google Cloud account. So we're gonna go ahead and click on create over here in the Kubernetes cluster. So there are two ways to create the cluster. One is like basic autopilot mode, and one is like standard mode. So we're gonna switch to standard mode because we're gonna have like a lot of customization options we can utilize to basically lower down the overall cost for our cluster. So right now you can see the cluster will cost me 176 USD if I run it for a month. So I'm gonna tweak few of the settings and we can definitely lower down this cost. So let's give it a name. I'm gonna give it a simple name MLOps, and I'm gonna keep it sorry, I'm gonna keep it zonal, restricted to one zone. Uh, these settings are pretty straightforward. Then we're gonna go to default pool nodes. And then the nodes we're gonna use. So basically right now the selected instance is E2, and we're gonna change this to select some other instance. And we have here, let me check. So let's select E2 small, which has like 2 gigs of RAM. And I'm gonna choose SSD with the size of like 25 gigs. Now you can see our cost is somewhere around $122 to run this cluster because of reduction in the disk size and also the instance. And now we're just gonna click on create. So this gonna take about like 3 to 4 minutes to create the cluster. And once the cluster it's ready, it's gonna change its status to like ready here. So let's wait for a bit. So now our cluster is up and running, and as you can check here, the status has changed to like completed. And if we click on this cluster name, we can see under nodes that we have all the nodes ready. And now our cluster is ready to deploy any application which is ready to containerize, and we can simply deploy those container on our Kubernetes cluster. But before that, we have to connect to our cluster using our local machine. So to do that, we have to install a few things. first thing that we have to install is Google Cloud CLI. And the installation of Google Cloud CLI is pretty straightforward for Windows user and for the Mac user or for the Linux user. So if you're a Linux user, if you are like a Mac OS user, you can simply use Homebrew to install it. And if you are a Linux user, there are commands to do that as well, and for Windows as well. And another tool that we need to connect with our Kubernetes cluster is kubectl. So this is another command line tool to connect with Kubernetes cluster from our local system. And again, the installation of this particular tool is pretty straightforward. They have homebrew command as well to install it on a Mac OS machine. And for Windows machine, they have a different setup basically. So yeah, that's pretty much what we need to start with our KServe lecture.